Hello, Dr. Mansurian, and those others who might be watching as well. This is going to be the ECE 4203 VLSI final presentation, and my name is Sharma. We're going to be talking about one of the 5 papers that was posted on Canvas. The paper I'm going to be talking about is a dynamic voltage scaled microprocessor system, and this was published in November of 2000, roughly more than 20 years ago. So it's a bit of an older paper. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed reading about how they talked about PDAs versus notebook computers, complex spreadsheet operations, speech recognition, and address book browsing. It kind of shows the age of the paper. And what it talked about with these different tasks and different microprocessor systems was that there are a few different types of tasks. So there's computive intensive tasks that have low latency. There are uh, low speed and long latency tasks, and there's idle tasks. So those compute intensive tasks, they're going to definitely require a lot of throughput versus those that are idle or low speed and long latency are not going to be needing as much. So therefore, we can turn down the voltage to give more energy to give more energy efficiency. So the problem is, like I mentioned, low speed, long latency requires low throughput, and compute intensive short latency uses full throughput. And what is interesting is that reducing the clock and reducing the power voltage are not going to be the entire solution just by themselves, because reducing the clock it puts no effect on the energy consumed, while reducing just the processor voltage, uh, it produces low peak throughput, so it wouldn't be able to help with those high computive intensive tasks. So what is the solution? Instead of using just one or the other, we have to go ahead and use both clock frequency and supply voltages at specific levels, so they're going to vary depending on the task at hand. Energy consumed can be reduced during low computational periods, and peak throughput is attainable when it is required by going ahead and varying these two factors of clock frequency and supply voltage. Through this method, we can go ahead and make everything more efficient, and it's called dynamic voltage scaling, also known as DVS. So DVS, it has the highest possible energy efficiency for time varying computation loads. And in the DVS enabled chipset that is mentioned in the paper, there's a few different components. These components include voltage converter, a microprocessor, SRAM memory chips, and an input-output peripherals connection interface chip. The key components listed in this DVS system in the paper is that the operating system, the regulation loop, and the microprocessor. Basically, these 3 components manage the different voltages desired for the task and voltage speed and processor speed. The DVS system in the paper had their regulation loop modified, and their operating system controls the loop by providing a specific clock frequency depending on the task at hand. And then software that's being used directly sets the operating frequency. The hardware loop determines the minimum required supply voltage to meet that clock frequency that was required. Now, there's going to be 2 different parameters to note on here. Transition time, it's defined as the duration required to alter clock frequency and supply voltage, and this time impacts both interrupt latency and wake-up latency when the system is in its lowest energy sleep state. The other parameter would be transition energy, and that's the extra energy consumption due to switching losses that is required to change the system supply voltage. So one paper that I saw that was more recent is called "Is DVFS Worth the Effort?" And that was published 20 years later in September of 2020. Now notice how there's an F in DVS, so now it's dynamic voltage and frequency scaling, DVFS. That's going to be the technical term used these days that is probably the predecessor to DVS. And in this process, it's very similar. It's pretty much the same thing, but obviously with the technology that we have today, power and energy saving technique for high performance systems and ultra low power systems. In this systematic process, the frequency gets divided in half, and then the tasks take a lot longer, about twice as much to continue a task. And other things will remain constant, while the total energy consumed would be the same for efficiency. However, there are still some problems with the system in DVFS, even in today's world. The formula for having the frequency does not count for fixed leakage. Energy lost to leakage will double, and the threshold voltage, when the system reaches that threshold voltage, leakage becomes even more dominant. And the memory voltage cannot be decreased by much like just like the CPU can. The memory voltage has its limitations. And the DRAM has to continually refresh, which can be a little bit annoying. Not to mention the input-output circuitry cannot have its voltage change either. So a lot of leakage problems with DVFS. There's also some design concerns. When the power switch is on, it can't instantly match up with the power that it's going to be powering the specific block we're turning the power switch is on for. And to hit a fast enough frequency at the lowest voltage, the low threshold devices become what the low threshold devices become used are rather leaky for the energy. High voltage operations tend to also be a bit leaky, so it's kind of like a lose-lose situation in both of those situations. Another concern is something in the application level. The application has to be written so that way DBFS can, their capabilities can optimize DBFS, the process of that. And it has to be written in such a way for the techniques to be efficient. And whoever writes the software has to be understanding of what task can be in the low power mode. In conclusion, the power and energy savings from DVFS, before known as just DVS, can be nominal, and the entire system just needs to be considered so that way you can make the appropriate changes in order to make it as efficient as possible. Though some designs can make significant gains by having a single system that is able to operate at multiple performance levels, nonetheless, it is a great idea for getting great levels of optimization in each power mode can be achieved with DVFS. Here are my works cited in IEEE format. The first citation is going to be the paper that was on Canvas that we went over. And the second one is the comparison article that I had found that talks about the continuation of DVS into DVFS and talking about what it is and what's the problems with it and if it's still good or if it's not good. Thank you for listening. I hope you found everything informative and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.